Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the SOTA Personal Training Podcast. Coach Phil here, and I am with a special guest. Our client, Hal, is joining us today to help walk through brain health and a series of somewhat personal and also just really important details around fitness and health and longevity. So we're really excited to have you here, Hal. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
As far as our format, what we want to do is equip you guys with some takeaways, some education. But Hal, what's the biggest theme here that you think kind of encapsulates what we'll go over today?
I don't think a lot of people think about brain health at all. They might think about their general health. They might try and eat well. They'll come to SOTA or their club or wherever and work out and do some cardio and not realize that a lot of that stuff is actually really helpful for brain health, but there might be a few other things to do as well. So I think that's a key takeaway, is just to put a little more focus on brain health specifically. Because, if we want to live a long, healthy life, if you don't have your brain, you're going to be in trouble there.
Right. Well, I know you're a big Peter Attia fan. I'm sure we'll touch on a few of his
Love him.
Procedures, if you will. But, he really talks about this idea of health span, which is not the number of years, but the number of quality years. I think it's often overlooked. So this is a really important topic, and a lot of this is kind of like the choose tough now or later thing when it comes to fitness. So I think it's a really important thing for people to understand and hear about. So, well, why don't you just kind of introduce yourself a little bit? You've been a member here for years, 3 years ago or so. You've been lifting weights here ever since, but feel free to kind of introduce your background a little bit and who you are.
Yeah, I have a bit of a geeky, techie background. I worked in IT for years. I was a consultant for years. And then I sort of got into brain health and started a company called Lower Dementia Risk. You can find me at lowerdementiarisk.com.
There you go.
And I also write a lot on Substack. And company might be too strong of a word. I really just enjoy learning about things that I'm interested in, and then if it's useful to others, sharing that. And that's really what Lower Dementia Risk is. There's not a whole lot of service opportunity, although there's certainly some, but it's mainly about me writing, sharing my experience, sharing my journey. And if people can get a couple nuggets of value out of that, then I'm happy.
Right.
So that's a quick background.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've looked several times at the articles you've written, and they're really, really helpful because there's an element of genetics and what can and can't you prevent. And it helps you look through a different scope and a different lens at longevity. And at the end of the day, empowering. Even if the news is less than optimal about the reality, it's being able to equip people with those tools is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about why this topic matters to you.
Yeah, brain health is a bit self-preservation in terms of how I think about it. Both of my parents had Alzheimer's. So my mom was diagnosed in 2001. She suffered for 10 years. My dad had it a year before she died, and died 8 years after that. So really for about 18 years, I was deep into experiencing this, sadly, with my parents and watching the decline. We would go to the Mayo Clinic frequently, once a year at least, to their appointments. And, I heard a lot of plan for the future kind of stuff, the inevitable bad future kind of stuff. And the tune has changed. I actually just saw something on Facebook right before I came in, where their doctor, the doctor that my parents worked with, is now talking about being a little more preventative and trying to get early diagnosis of people before they have symptoms, which is phenomenal. But at that time, no fault to anyone, they were really talking about preparing for this future, get stuff in order, if you will.
Right.
And about 5 years after my dad died, I just, I wouldn't say I was overcome, but there was pressure on my shoulders every single day. I thought about me getting dementia. And I didn't really think about that at all while they were alive, but after they were gone, I thought about it literally every single day for about 5 years. Not in a debilitating sense, but it was there. And then you mentioned Peter Attia. Then I heard a podcast from Peter Attia. I looked through his stuff, and he was the first doctor that I heard say, no, you can do a whole bunch of stuff to decrease your risk of getting dementia and cardiovascular disease and a whole bunch of other things that we will all, potentially die from. So That I grabbed onto that with both hands. I mean, that was really exciting to me. I went deep into Peter Attia land, as you know, and really started. That was the beginning of my journey of learning about, what are these things that I can do to decrease my risk of dementia?
Right.
Because I'm at higher risk. Both my parents had it. I know that. But it's not inevitable. It's not all genetics. And so as I was learning more and more, I learned that was the case, that I had some power here. And I'm going to try and do, I want to live my life and, I want to drink every once in a while. I want some sugar every once in a while. I don't want to work out some days. So I want to live my life, but I also want to decrease my risk of this as much as I possibly can.
Right. And obviously this is it's a very bleak idea for a lot of people. Like, it's really scary, but I think at the end of the day, we can do both. We can find that middle ground. We can still do things to prevent the risk of those items, and we can still live life. We don't need to sacrifice everything just for that one sake. There's a way to do both for the most part. Those of you listening, Peter T is he's got a book, Outlive. It's like a major bestseller. It really, I think, launched him into the public view. And then he's got his podcast. It's called The Drive, correct?
The Drive. He was just on 60 Minutes about, I don't know, sometime in the last week, I think.
Yeah, they were grilling him a little bit. Like, how much does this cost? And he's got a very tailored program.
I'm not in his program, but I devour his videos and his book and all that stuff. Yeah,
exactly. I was really hesitant because every guy over 50, kept hearing Peter Attia, and it was like, anytime there's that frequency of something, it's like, is this like trendy or, something along those lines? I'm like, I'm going to read the book. And it was phenomenal. Like, I appreciated his message and how he approached it and talks about his background. So he does have a lot of merit. And I think that's where medicine should go. And in the book, he talks about medicine 2.0 versus 3.0, which is basically just all about prevention. And for us and me personally, that's why I always got into training, is like, it's this preventative side. I wanted to go to PT school and do all this. But when I was shadowing, you'd see people who were on the other end of, I hurt now and it's not too late. But when I started training, it was like, these are all people who want to get ahead of this. And the energy is totally different. And it was just a massive shift in my own psychology with that. So it's really, really important stuff. We talked about, why this topic matters quite a bit. I want you to kind of highlight, the idea of this, like, normal aging versus what's maybe not normal, right? When people think about brain health long-term. Would you be willing to kind of share on that a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm 57. I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but I'm going to bring this up. So, we scheduled when this podcast was going to be recorded, I don't know, a week or so ago. And a couple of days after that, I texted you. I can't remember when we scheduled it. I wrote it down somewhere. I don't know where that piece of paper is. So this is all really embarrassing.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to say this is normal aging at 57. I do have to write more things down. I also have to keep those pieces of paper in order. And that's harder than it used to be. Yeah. I can't multitask as much. It takes me longer to learn new things. Julie, my wife, and I are learning new card games and learning new things. And it does take me longer than it used to. And my kids will, certainly attest to that fact. But that's normal aging. Executive function slows down. Things slow down. Losing your keys, that's normal. Not ever being able to find your keys or remember that person's name or know what the keys are for or being able to drive a route that you've driven 100 times, that is less normal. Those are certainly warning signs. And that actually happened to my mom. My mom one time was driving, I think, home from the beauty shop, hair salon, whatever. And she's done it 100 times and couldn't figure out how to get home and was driving around for a while and maybe eventually called my dad. I don't remember exactly, but that was a sign that, something unusual is happening. Don't know that it's dementia. Maybe it's stress. It could be a whole bunch of things. Maybe she's tired, but, obviously it turned into what it turned into. So, that's sort of some examples of normal versus not normal stuff.
Right, exactly. I mean, you should see the stack of, sticky notes that I end up taking with me because I just don't even try to remember it. I'm just like, I'm writing it down. I'll sequentially put that into a notebook, and that notebook might go into like a Notion dashboard or something. Maybe it's the ADHD that I can't keep it all together.
Systems are good, whatever works for you. And I think you need more systems the older you get.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think people hold to a lot of pride around doing some of that stuff. The autonomy of, no, I don't. No, my memory is just kind of a little funky today. But I think there's a sense of that might get in the way of things for some people, or they're just underslept.
Yeah,
like many
for
people.
sure. When I'm anxious or stressed or didn't get a good night's sleep, I can often tell that affects my cognition and what I'm doing during the day. And I think it's important to understand. It's important for me to understand what's normal and what's maybe something else.
Right.
Because you get nervous. I got nervous, for years. Again, those 5 years. I noticed things that were changing with me, and I'm like, uh-oh, here it is. It's starting. And, hopefully it wasn't. We won't know for a while. But,
Right.
It's knowing that, nope, that's okay. That's normal. You're just getting older and things are a little bit slower. That's all right. Calms me a little bit. So I think it's important for people to understand, I think that's a good question. What is normal aging and what maybe isn't.
Right. Well, and a lot of people, when they get scared about something like this, or many things, I'm sure, with their health, that I don't want to make the doctor appointment or whatnot, people will go one of two ways. There's kind of the action base, this is what you did, which is to take it head on, learn as much as you can, equip yourself.
Eventually.
Right.
Not
but
right away.
It took time, right? There's the stages of readiness to change and adopt those things. But most people will, perpetually wait. Right. I've seen that within my own family. There's like now it's fine, and it's like, well, and that person has to be ready to say yes to that next step.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be the one. They're really tough. So, in our notes here, we put this 30,000 foot is a 30,000 foot view essentially.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. When you're thinking about what the brain needs to thrive, I think of it just in simple terms, 2 key things. One is to really decrease inflammation, and not acute inflammation. Like if I punch you in the arm and you're black and blue and you swell a little bit and it's warm, that's an acute inflammation. Your body, your immune system's going to attack what happened and fix it and be gone in a couple of days. I'm talking about chronic inflammation in your brain. So you are stressed, you're not sleeping, there's maybe toxins involved. There's something going on where your inflammation levels are just too high for too long. And that's really bad. That's just going to slow everything down, and you're going to have cognitive decline eventually, probably. So really focusing on inflammation. There's simple blood tests you can take to assess the inflammation in your whole system. And then you can, learn, I was a little high with my inflammation, frankly. I learned that I had a genetic mutation, the MTHFR gene, which sounds like it stands for something bad, but it doesn't, that caused me to not process B vitamins well, which addresses inflammation in your brain and throughout your body. I take a supplement now and it addressed it very quickly, so not an issue anymore. But so that's just one example of a simple test, but a really big issue if you have chronic inflammation.
Yeah.
And then the other is blood flow. The blood brings nutrients, brings oxygen into your brain and the rest of your body. It takes toxins out. If you don't have good blood flow, you're going to have potential issues there. And both of those things, the inflammation and blood flow, exercise and nutrition.
Right.
It's not just those things, sleep. There's a whole bunch of stress. There's a whole bunch of things. But, those are 2 big things that you focus on in particular that are critical for both blood flow and inflammation.
Yeah. That was going to be my question is people are listening. They're like, what? That doesn't sound good. How do I do this? And a lot of times it comes back to a lot of these fundamental principles of what most people I think know is how to be healthy, right? I should exercise. I need to get my sleep. It's simple, but not easy to do for a lot of people. But the other thing you talked about was just the power of medicine, right? It's not an end all be all. We're in the greatest stage ever of medicine that's ever existed. And it can really work for us, hopefully to quell some of that fear and also empower people to say, okay, I have time to figure this out and there's tools.
And our healthcare system is particularly well set up to address problems that exist. And that's great. And when I have a problem, I'm going to go to my doctor and I hope they can address it through surgery, through medication, whatever the case may be. But a lot of this is we don't want the dementia. We don't want symptoms. We don't want the problem. Yeah. And our healthcare system is a little less suited to preventative stuff. I think it'll get better. But so that's a challenge. And it really requires each of us to take that on our own, be our own best advocates in
Yeah.
this area.
Yeah, exactly. That's a huge, huge component. Is no one's coming to save us, right? So we gotta treat that with the reality that it is, and again, be our best self advocates, as you very well put. Peter Attia talks about this in his book too, but this idea of medicine is great, so we are living longer. But again, that last 10 years of life is really dictated by the previous, 30 to 40. And right around 40 is when we're going to start to see some of the aches and pains and the lifestyle. People go to college, they might still be active, and then that first job hits and they have a family and like the pressure is on. And then usually people around when they're in their 50s or so, they say, I've got a little bit of breathing room, but we got 20 years of habits under our belt that are potentially very hard to break. And also we just don't have the energy we used to. Yeah. So it's really tricky, but it's something you've taken head on. I mean, you being here, and I've seen that shift in you, just committing to the process for the greater, more impactful goal of why you're going to the gym every day. It's awesome to see. So I want to commend you for that.
I'll take it.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, let's kind of move on here. So we're talking about, approach, baseline, a few things like modifiable risk factors. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So when I talk to people, people often ask me, because they know I'm into this, well, what should I do? And this is kind of, I'm a logical guy. I like data. So I tell people the first thing is figure out where you are at. Same thing when you have a new client here at the gym. I look around, I've been here for 3 years. I'm never doing the same exercises as anyone else. Not everyone, but anyone. We're all doing different things. We're all working out, but we are doing different exercises, different reps, different weight, different sets, different number. All that stuff is different for all of us because we're all individuals. And so I tell people to get a baseline, figure out where you are. Because what I'm doing, I talked about B vitamins and my, high homocysteine, inflammation levels. I talked about that, but someone else may not have those issues. So, I recommend people get blood tests, much more extensive blood tests than what you would get at your annual physical. Those are great to start, but they're not everything. So a much more comprehensive blood panel is one thing. Do a cognitive test, especially if you feel like you are at risk. And it's not an intelligence test, but it tests, how how quickly your reaction time is, executive function skills, cognitive abilities. And that's good just to have a baseline. If you're perfect on it, great. 5 years from now, when you feel like you might have issues and you want to retake it, you might identify areas where you are less perfect, and you may be able to do some things about that. So blood tests, cognitive tests, and then these modifiable risk factors. The Lancet organization put out a paper, they do, I think, every year, of modifiable risk factors that if we could address these risk factors, it might address almost half of the dementia cases, Alzheimer's cases out there. So these are the things that are in your control. Smoking, hearing, vision, exercise, nutrition, those types of things are on the list. And so I have people just look at that list of 14 things and just kind of grade yourself. Like, do you feel like you're doing well there, that's not an issue? Is sleep an issue? No, I sleep 8 hours a night. I have no issue sleeping. Great. Then let's not talk about that anymore. What about nutrition? Well, I like to drink. I like my sugar and I like my, other bad foods. And maybe that's an area to talk about. So at least assess where you are there and just get a baseline. And then after you have a baseline, maybe there's some things you need to change. Maybe you need to eat better. Maybe you need to exercise more. Maybe your blood test results show something like they did for me that, you need to take a couple supplements or maybe eat differently instead of taking supplements. Maybe there's a prescription. So you do some interventions and then you retest, not necessarily the cognitive stuff, but the blood stuff, and see if it moved the needle where it needed to, because you're trying to optimize levels. And then, more interventions and just kind of rinse and repeat. Keep doing that. You don't have to do it that frequently, but, you might do it every 3 or 6 months to start. And then you might just do it every year or two after that. But at least, know where you are. Try some different interventions to change what needs to be changed and retest and see if those things work. And if not, try different things.
Right. Absolutely.
So that's kind of my approach and how I think about it in just sort of a logical way.
Yeah. Just to repeat that phrase. So you said almost half of Alzheimer's cases are largely preventable through lifestyle choices and assessment?
Yeah, so I have in front of me from the Lancet, a graphic that they have, and they say half of all dementia cases worldwide could be prevented or delayed by addressing 14 modifiable risk factors. And then they list those risk factors out with the percentage impact that they have. Now, this isn't for me as an individual. This is a population level. So, but if you're thinking about, well, what's in my, I can't change my genetics. I can change modifiable risk factors by definition. They're modifiable.
Right.
And so what are the things on there and where am I maybe weak? And if I already know I'm at high risk, I'm going to try and address those things. So it's nice to have that list at least.
Yeah. Oh, seriously. I mean, that's such a big statistic, it's like, and again, as you said, there's some of these that maybe you are doing great. So it's not like you have to change your life 14 ways, maybe it's a couple big ones and then you go from there.
I had a handful that, I should look into these a little bit more.
I'm sure we all do.
Yeah. And it's nice to know, you can look at this half empty or half full. For me, it was nice to know, I can address maybe half my risk. Again, that's not exactly what they're saying, but that's how I'm going to take it. I can address maybe half my risk through these modifiable risk factors, things that I can do. So that's the positive. The negative is, half my risk is maybe genetic and I can't do anything about it. But whatever, I can't worry about things I can't control. Right. So I focus on the 50%, and that's big to me. That's a big, it's not, I thought it was all genetics. That was sort of my takeaway from all those Mayo visits.
Yeah.
I thought it was all genetics. And now I found out, maybe it's only half genetics. It's like, wow, that's empowering.
Yeah. A lot of people feel that way though. I'm still sure people listening to this and I think most of the population, the narrative is that's just part of aging, right? Your body starts to hurt and then you eventually, get in the chair, and it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. People can rewrite their aging narrative, at least have some say in it. We are not powerless.
Yeah. The biggest risk factor for dementia, for Alzheimer's, is age. But that doesn't make it normal. Just because it's more common as you get older doesn't make it normal. It's a disease. It's cancer. It's cardiovascular disease. It's a disease. So it's not normal by definition.
Right.
And we're learning more and more about how we can maybe prevent it. Just like, we get our cholesterol checked, our blood pressure to try and address cardiovascular disease before we have a heart attack or something. This is the same thing. What can we be doing to assess our risk before we have an event or symptoms, and maybe push that out 10 years or maybe avoid it altogether?
Right. Exactly. Oh, it makes a lot of sense. In here, when we talk about people come in, and this is kind of work we're doing here in a sense, right? We don't say necessarily, well, we're treating for, prevention of Alzheimer's, but when people come in and they've got this track record of habits, we always say that assessment creates awareness, and awareness is what can precipitate change. Just by knowing, that's going to guide a lot of almost subconscious or unconscious thoughts and actions. And so just measuring things, which is sometimes the biggest step, is the most impactful. And even just that knowing is power in a lot of ways, for a lot of people. So, okay, awesome. Yeah. And you said 3 to 6 months, maybe every so often to start just on the front end. And then as people kind of get more of a baseline set of tests and things like that, yearly is probably a reasonable timeline.
Yeah. When you start a new prescription or new supplements, you usually give it 3 months or so, and then you can retest if you want. But there's longer term things that, you can take longer to test. And certainly after you're stable, I take a vitamin D supplement, and more than I used to, because I was low in vitamin D, like most of us probably are, especially here in Minnesota. So, I test that once a year, roughly. I know it's pretty stable. I don't worry about it anymore, but other things change over time. So you want to keep some tabs on it.
Right. Well, like anything, if you're treating, and taking this on with a lifestyle approach, you can almost look at that as medicine, like movement, nutrition. Those things are medicine. So just doing those things doesn't have to be a medication to redo these. So that's great. You want to jump into the evidence a little bit?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a big caveat. I'm not a huge, so I know you want, or people want, prove this to me. Show me the study that proves that doing A will resolve B. And, there's plenty of mouse studies and other animal studies and whatever. Human studies, a real large human, double-blinded, random control trial kind of study is really difficult. It's really costly. And when you're talking about preventative stuff, who's going to fund that?
Right.
Sadly, no one. If it's a drug, then the drug companies will fund all those studies, and they spend billions on studies to sell their drugs.
That's right.
But if you're trying to prevent having to take the drug in the first place, sadly not, it's hard to fund those kinds of studies. So, and we've also learned, this, I'm not trying to make a political comment, but sometimes, things that we thought were true in science, we learn more, and they are not true when we found out we were wrong. And that is science. It's supposed to work that way.
Yes.
We do the best we can. We make some judgments. We get some standards in place. And then over time, we learn different things. We learn different things about cholesterol. We learn different things about everything.
Yeah.
So I don't throw that stuff out. But I also kind of feel like since we're not ever going to have perfect data, and I'm trying to prevent stuff, again, I'm a logical person. Tell me why exercise and eating better is going to hurt me. Like, I can't necessarily prove that I'm not going to get dementia because I'm working out 3 times a week and eating better. But I can't see any downside. There's a huge downside. There's huge risk of not working out and not eating well and not sleeping well and being really stressful and a whole bunch of other things. There's lots of downside there. So I don't feel like I need to prove the positive, because it's logic enough for me to take that on.
Absolutely.
I do love this Lancet report because it lays out these 14 things. There's plenty of studies that I could show, but I'm not an expert. Most of us aren't experts at reading through these studies and being able to call BS on them when there's stuff in there that we that's not really true. Like even this Mayo Clinic thing I read today, about the preventative work that they're doing with Alzheimer's. It's all people local in Olmsted County in southern Minnesota around Rochester.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, how diverse is that population? Like, how much does that really extend to everybody? Men, women, different races, different, everything.
Exactly.
So, it's good that they're doing that for sure. And it's great that they have the people close because it's easy to track them. And I'm sure that's why they're doing it that way. But, we might learn that doesn't necessarily extend to everyone. They're still learning. We're always going to be learning.
Yeah. I mean, I was a psych major and we learned how to run a study and use all the numbers on a very small scale. And you realize how easy it is to change like the R value, I believe it is, to make your arguments, and nothing is actually proven. There's a lot of correlation, not causation. And that's another level into research that people will never see. They'll just, if anything, look at the abstract and try to get an idea, but you won't really know until you look at the numbers and how they actually went through it. And then they often will get critique too, and it's got to be done several times. So just like you said, this all comes back to being your own best advocate for yourself and doing what feels right and make sure it's in the right direction.
Yeah. And I'm just not educated. I'm not smart enough to read through those studies. I mean, I can read them, and just like I read that Mayo Clinic Alzheimer's preventative study article, and I saw some things that were kind of warning signs to me or different risk factors, I guess. But but I don't get hung up on that.
Yeah.
Because again, I feel like the risk of not doing these things is much greater than the risk of doing them.
Right.
And so I don't need much more information than that.
Yep. No, exactly. And that's a good way to play it. It's like, well, let's look at, are we trying to find the one small thing that does prove this one thing, or the other body of evidence that you already probably know is true, right?
Yep.
But yeah, the Lancet's been great. And it's not one I'd actually been exposed to until recently. And just looking at that really helps paint a picture. And then here we have kind of our 4 pillars, and that's just to make it digestible. But this is a really good way to present it to people. So those you listening, check it out and just see where you're at. This is a small, tactical goal for now. So just go look at it. Just take a step in if this is something you might be concerned about, or someone you know and love is as well. Okay. Excellent. Should we talk about diet stuff?
Yeah. I kind of have the same approach with diet. I know people that are carnivores. They literally only eat meat and eggs.
Yeah.
And I think it's crazy. I would never do it. I'm not interested in doing it, but they feel great. And they've had blood tests and calcium scores and they're doing okay. And so it could work for them or work for them during this period of their life and maybe not for other periods. And it might not work for other people. So I don't get too hung up on what people are doing there. There's a lot of information on the Mind Mediterranean diet, especially if you're at higher risk of dementia. Olive oil, lots of olive oil, healthy nuts, salmon, less red meat, more fish, chicken would be okay, but it depends on the diet. So, there's a lot of information out there. I don't get too hung up on diets either. I mean, it's impossible. Any study related to diet is nearly, I'm not going to say it's worthless, but it's really, really hard to get anything useful out of it.
Pretty darn close to worthless, though. It's tough.
I mean, you have people filling out forms. What did you eat 2 days ago? Like, I don't know what I just had for lunch an hour ago.
Right.
And so it's just not accurate. Or they know, well, I'm in the study and I'm supposed to track stuff, but I went to Dairy Queen and then I had cake for dinner.
They don't want to say
but
that.
I'm not going to write that down because I won't look good. So it's, and there's a million other factors. I mean, the fact that I come into SOTA and can afford to come here, not that it's that expensive, but that I choose to spend some money to come here, probably also means I have money to spend elsewhere, that I'm also healthy in different areas of my life. I mean, there's all these, confounding aspects of this. And so it's really hard to tease out, well, how much is lifting weights helping me with X? I don't know, because I'm also eating more protein and, sleeping well and focusing in this area and that area and taking these prescriptions and these supplements. So, but I don't really care. Like, I don't need to know that because I'm not doing the study. I just know that I'm affecting my long-term health. And I feel really much better in the short term too.
Right.
Just getting, hormones in line, vitamins, eating better, and lifting weights and doing cardio. I feel better right now, whether or not I get dementia 10 or 20 or 30 years from now. And that's good enough.
That's really important. A lot of people, when they come in here and see me, you say, what are your goals? What do you want to do? And it, you get far enough along with them and they just say, I just want to feel better. I just don't feel good. And so we want to do things that help you do that now, because the rest of it will just come from feeling better now. That will probably lead to more activity, making healthier choices. Right. You're not as stressed. You're sleeping better. So if you can get that ball rolling, there really is a snowball effect.
For sure.
With diets, one of the things we try to help out with, but it is so multifaceted. And yes, from my own research, it's like there's not one diet that's the king, right? You get the trendy diets, keto, and let's see, was it like 2 years ago, everyone was just coconut oil, right? Or whatever it was. They're brushing your teeth with it. It's like some things come and go. The thing with things like the carnivore diet, there's a lot of trains of thought as to why that feels good for people. But every diet, people feel better maybe not because they're having just eggs and meat, right? It's just they're not having Snickers bars and it's that side of it that I think people, they look at the diet and they're like, well, that's it. But really, what could we have removed and probably had the same result as well? So, I mean,
just eating, focusing on protein and trying to eat a little more protein, or a lot maybe for some people, especially as we get older, I believe you need more protein. Then you're just more satiated. You're more full during the day, and you're not going to snack and eat the crap that you were eating before. So you don't have to go carnivore. You can maybe just eat a little more protein with some vegetables, with some fruit. That can be your sugar, and you might not crave anything else.
Yes. Well, I almost guarantee that will be the case.
Yeah.
And stay hydrated too, because you might just be thirsty sometimes. But yeah, we say you're probably never going to overeat things like lean protein, fruits, and veggies. We say have as many of those as you want all the time, because they're going to satiate you and you're going to get full at the right time, and all the right things happen. It leaves room for the stuff that maybe isn't on the list, so to speak. But you got to live a balanced approach to all this.
I think also for a lot of people, diet comes down to, if you're trying to lose weight, just eating less. Push, 100%. Make your plate of food. You don't have to fill it up, but make a normal, good plate of food. And then that you're done after that. At least give yourself 10 minutes after you eat to see if, am I really still hungry? But if, you don't give yourself any time for your brain to catch up to what you just put in your stomach, you're just going to keep eating. So I would, push the plate away and just have that plate of food. And that was probably enough for you.
I know, we just got to think about it. Everyone's so busy. They just like scarf down their food. They're racing to the kids thing or this and that. But this is important. So got to slow down once in a while. just by thinking about it, it's going to have a massive effect. Our portion sizes have been ruined forever. Like they're not going to go back down. There was something I heard, I don't know if it's true, but it was funny that the depiction of the Last Supper over the years, the plates have gotten bigger just to help reflect what modern day is like. Because if they were tiny, they'd be like, what are they doing? This is weird.
Why are they all so thin?
I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know if that's true at all. I should probably check it.
That's funny.
So yeah, diet's tricky, but protein, like less sugar, less the stuff we already know. Everyone knows is probably pro-inflammatory, leads to overeating.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff.
All that stuff in a box, in a can with, 20, 30 different ingredients. You don't know what they are, and they're long chemical sounding names. Probably aren't good for you. Broccoli. You know what broccoli is?
Yes.
Get broccoli.
It's 100% broccoli.
Salmon. You know what that is? Have salmon.
Yeah.
But yeah, the stuff in the middle of the grocery store, as good as it looks, is probably not very good for you.
I can't take my kids in the grocery store. There's too many colors and all the stuff's in the middle. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. And the other thing is people have decision fatigue with food. They're like, but cooking and what are we going to have? Keep it simple. Sean and I just talked about this recently. We're like salmon, veggies, and like a little rice. Like that's an A+ meal. It's going to be delicious if you give it a little bit of time, and it's going to help your health in a big way if you keep doing it. So as far as supplements, which are going to be kind of related, we're going to talk about some snake oil right now. Okay,
I'm ready.
Tell me about some of the supplements when we're, being marketed. I've seen all the ones. There's all these brain supplements I've seen. One was called like Focus, and they got a little caffeine in it, and they say it's going to help, your cognition. Are they all bunk, or is there some merit?
I think there's some merit, but the industry overall has a bad reputation. There's probably a reason for that. I go back to the blood tests. I mean, if I wouldn't just go into a store and buy vitamin D and omega. You might need vitamin D and omega, but wouldn't you like to know if you need it and then how much you might need, and then retest to see if the quantity you're taking, meets the need that you're trying to fulfill? So I'm all about, measuring, figuring out what you need. I think multivitamins are great, but maybe you don't need all of that stuff, and maybe you need more of other things. And so, if you're measuring, I was low on vitamin D, magnesium, one or two other things, and I supplement with those. I can't get them out of my diet. I need to supplement. And part of the problem was this MTHFR gene that helped give me issues with metabolizing vitamin B12. So I take that's another supplement I take. So I think supplements are great. You should get, supplements that are as clean as possible, good manufacturing process, all that stuff. And you can see that on the label or research it. That's fine. But I wouldn't just walk in a store willy-nilly and say, oh, people say omega is really important for your brain. Omega is really important for your brain.
Yeah.
But first, just get a sense of, is that an issue for you? If it's not, don't waste your time and money. But if it is, a lot of these supplements are not expensive, well tested, well handled by people. It doesn't cause any issues. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of supplements. I take a bunch, not a bunch, but I take a half dozen probably. But I take them where I know I need them. So it's very personalized and targeted.
Yeah. They're important if we know that there's a need for it, right? Not if the guy at GNC tells you you should get this, a 17-year-old kid. Are GNCs still around? I haven't seen one in a long time.
I don't know. There was one in Ridgedale. I don't think it's there anymore.
I don't think that one's there, and I think I know why. But the creatine is one that's really gotten some traction lately and had apparently some favorable research. Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who I love her stuff. She's very research-based, despite its limitations. But is that one that you take right now?
I do. I actually recently upped it. So I take, for years, last couple of years, I was taking 5 grams. And I thought initially I was taking it as a part of kind of my workout routine.
Right.
It brings water into your muscles. So you look better, but it's also healthier for your muscles. I think it helped me with recovery. I had big issues working out and then just being exhausted and sore. I think it addresses that a little bit, but then I found out it's neuroprotective. I don't know exactly how, but it's neuroprotective. And then I recently, maybe in the last 6 months, read a bunch of articles and research that talked about the brain benefits, and maybe 5 grams aren't enough.
Yeah.
So I recently started taking 10 grams, and I'll probably just stay there.
Yeah.
Some people, it upsets their stomach, but I don't have that issue. I take it in powder form. There's also pills, but you have to take a lot of pills to get 5 or 10 grams. So yeah, I think it's helped a lot in the short term. What it's doing long term, again, I don't know. I have no way of knowing that or measuring that.
Yeah.
But it's so many people have taken it for so many decades.
Yeah.
Mostly for working out related purposes. The neural stuff is relatively new, but it's incredibly safe I've never heard anything other than there is no downside. It's really safe. It's been used so many times by so many people for so long.
It's very widely studied, and it's very, very cost effective as far as supplementation.
Yeah, it's cheap.
You just toss it in whatever you have. But yeah, that spillover effect is something they're starting to hear more about. So it's like, well, gosh, isn't that a steroid? You know, that's kind of like the mentality of what is that? And it's like, well, no, your parents will probably be taking it, or whoever. But even if you don't work out, it sounds like it might have some benefit. Yeah. So
do you take it?
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed that in effect. It's supposed to, obviously help replenish the ATP. And so when I lift after taking creatine, whether it's a psychosomatic effect or not, I can lift more every single time I take it, because if there's periods where I don't, and people get confused with the whole loading phase, you don't have to worry about that. You can just take it whenever, just it'll do its job.
I'm all for psychosomatic. Like
it's real. It's real. It really is.
If it works, whatever. Give me placebo. I don't care.
They've studied that. The placebo effect is 100% real. And when I was at the U studying, we studied that a lot, and crazy stuff will happen if you believe it will in your body. Yeah. It's really fascinating. Yeah. So, now as far as brain games, I want to talk about that a little bit. So, is this just Sudoku, or what are we talking about? More than that, right?
There's lots of games out there, puzzles, whatever. I think I tried Brain HQ for a while as a part of this whole program I was on. They were saying, try it, see what happens, see what you think. And I got better at those Brain HQ games, but I didn't really see it translate to the rest of my life.
Right.
I think if you play Sudoku or crossword puzzles or whatever, word games, you'll get better at those games. I don't know if it'll transfer to anything else.
Right.
If you're doing it in a social atmosphere, I think it's great, because social is super important for avoiding dementia. That's definitely one of the 14 risk factors. So I think that can be really helpful. I did, there are 2 parts of Brain HQ that were fascinating to me, having nothing to do with, it's a little off topic here, but I was, I could get better at almost all of the games except for 2 categories. One is facial recognition, and 2 is remembering conversations. And it struck me, the worse you are at things, the more it'll try and get you to work on it. And so I did tons of these things, and they would show you for a second or 2 a face, and then they'll show you after that 6 faces but at different angles, and you had to figure out which faces match, and it was impossible for me to do. And so it really struck me as my whole life I've really struggled with identifying with people in that way, and remembering, have we met before, and remembering their story, and it affected me. It still affects me socially. So it was really interesting to me. Again, I couldn't get better at it. It is just a big weakness of mine.
Yeah.
And other people have it too, but it's definitely a weakness of mine, sadly. So it was interesting from that perspective, but that wasn't really the point of your question.
Yeah.
Did it help me, become sharper in other areas of my life? It didn't for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, and that's, if you listen to our podcast, Sean's all about the tangents. He only gets 2, but I think that's definitely worth, reiterating, because I think a lot of it has to do with, maybe it's the fact that you're kind of the jack of all trades. You're doing different games. The process of learning is probably what's most valuable, not getting really good at chess or something necessarily, just using your brain in different ways. I would be willing to assume that helps it in a lot of ways versus doing the same thing.
Yeah. And if you're playing the game with other people, I think that's good. But there's lots of things, you can, forget about games for a second, but you could learn a new language. If you're going to Spain next year, learn a little Spanish.
Right.
Or, I played drums in high school and then didn't play for 30 years and then picked it up again and joined a band and we do some gigs. That was super good for me. I mean, just having the music back is important for my brain.
Yeah.
I'm with a band that's social. We're
Right.
doing stuff that's stress and anxiety, but in a positive way.
Totally.
So, I think you can pick up sports or music or other activities you did or new activities, I think is definitely helpful. I mean, all that builds, neuroplasticity. I mean, it helps your brain. Your brain is not, doesn't have a fixed number of cells and just diminishes over time. You can rebuild and repair. But you have to work at it. It's like lifting weights and doing cardio.
Like a muscle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I played music for the longest time, and like we had a house, and I had a drum set downstairs. I didn't know you drum, so it was really fascinating to see that. I mean, I just do it. It just kind of comes naturally, so I'm okay at it. But I don't know how to really do all the patterns, but I can hold beat. But getting back into that, we sold our house. We're in an apartment, so all I have is like a guitar, and then we have our girls have like a tiny toy guitar. And I started with that little one, and I was just like, there's something came back to me, and there's just that creative process. And I think that's a lot of it is creating something, solving problems. It after I do that, I don't know, I feel way better. It's meditative. I can think more clearly just by taking a little break. But I don't think people give themselves enough little breaks to do stuff like that, or they don't have a hobby or activity that allows them to do that.
Yeah. I think hobbies are really important. And I just had, such great memories from playing music in high school. And so it's all connected. It's so positive for me. It's so spiritual and therapeutic. It's great. I love it.
No, that's great. That's really important. Really important.
Check us out at lowerlevel.band.
Lowerlevel.band.
Lowerlevel.band. Go online, check it out. We have a video there that, again, I made that video with the help of a friend, Aaron, shout out. But made the video. We went into a studio and did some recording. It was a super cool experience. And so you can check us out at lowerlevel.band.
That's amazing. Okay, so do you go out and like play gigs and stuff too?
Yeah, we've been doing a few a year. Some of us would like to do more. Some of us are busy and happy with a couple.
I'm sure that's tricky to... Yeah.
But we practice, almost every week.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's something I want to get back to eventually. I have a friend who was in the same band in high school. He went to McNally Smith College in St. Paul, shut down now, but he went for music production. He's building a studio in his house. Cool. And I can't wait. I hope it pushes me. Actually, we're going to go tomorrow for the first time in probably a year and a half. We're going to play together. So I'm excited.
Cool.
Okay, about you have some notes here about how does brain health connect with physical health. I think we've kind of hit on this quite a bit. There's this very multifaceted approach and thought process behind making this work for us. Is there anything else on that you think is worth sharing?
No, I mean, our body is a system, so it's all connected. So, and this is a good thing. Because it builds on each other. What's good for your heart, what's good for your gut is going to be good for your brain, and so the things that we are talking about and other things we even haven't talked about yet, are common sense. Like you're not going to be shocked that, I should eat better or exercise important. Like none of that is earth-shattering news. Atia, I think, does a really good job in being more specific on, what does exercise mean? What should, and how do you measure, where should you be in terms of lean muscle mass or being able to do your VO2 max test or that kind of stuff. So I think he's great there, and I'm a data guy, so I loved that stuff from him.
Right.
But, I think people who are coming to the gym and already doing cardio, lifting weights, eating healthy, getting good sleep, watching, they're drinking and other things, all that is good for your whole body. And that is, your brain is a part of your body. So I think what's good for the brain is good for the rest of you and vice versa.
Yeah. Something I learned in college was that we don't seem to, a lot of people don't know, but there are so many nerve endings in your gut. And so they've done some studies more recently about that, our diet related to mental health. Like when people eat better and obviously when they exercise for a different reason, we have less severe instance of depression, anxiety, and lifting weights, I could tell you probably a million reasons why, but one of them is it's essentially operating like an endocrine system. And so again, in that light of feeling good now and how that will just unlock other things just without you even having to think about it, it's a really big deal. And people don't have to do it very long. I don't think we'll break into the metrics of, what PRT says, but it's lift heavy, sprint once in a while, walk a ton, and, just eat sensibly, commit to the big picture, I think.
Yeah.
People only look what's in front of them, a little bit, whether it's summer or that wedding, my son's wedding or something like that. Think long term. What do you want life to look like at 60, 70, 80, if we're lucky?
Yeah. I mean, it's so simple, but it's so hard.
Isn't that funny? It really is.
Yeah.
Everyone knows. Now this is very, none of it's really groundbreaking. A few things that are like, oh, that's some new suggestions, but generally it really is, it's very simple in nature.
And I really envy, there's people who love to work out. They get jazzed when they're coming in. They feel great. They're so motivated and they just kill it every single time.
Yeah.
I am not one of those people. Again, I've been coming here for 3 years. I don't like working out, frankly, if I were to be honest.
That's why it's so impressive, though, is you're like, I still gotta go. You take the decision making almost out of it. You're like, it's just something you got to do. It's like brushing your teeth. It's
on my schedule, right? And I'm doing it. But I do feel better after doing it. I see the improvements. Mm-hmm. It still doesn't connect in my brain that, I'm going to run in today. It's just like, oh God, I got to go work out again.
So many other things I'd like to do. Just get in the car and put it in gears like,
but it's working.
Everyone always feels better. Yes. No, you've done tremendously well. I worked with you the other day for the first time in a long time, and it was really cool to see. I don't know. You've come a long way, and it's really awesome to see your work ethic at play. As far as sleep, stress, is it as simple as just sleep more? Just get off the phone before you go to bed?
If you have sleep issues, I used the Aura Ring for a month to see, I thought I slept well. Mm-hmm. And it turned out I do. I get enough REM sleep and deep sleep and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't have a problem there, but it was, again, worth testing.
Yes.
And I may have a problem in the future, and I'll test it some other way. Or Aura is pretty popular right now, so maybe I would do that again. So I think it's good to think about and maybe even test and see if you have any issues. I look at my phone before I go to bed. It's the first thing I look at. A lot of bad habits.
Yeah.
But I sleep well. I get my deep sleep that I need. I sleep around 7 hours. 7 to 9 is good. 7 or 8 is good. If you're only getting 6 or fewer hours, that could be a problem. Sleep is really important for cleaning out your brain. Your body is kind of shut down, but it's working hard at getting junk out of your brain in particular. So sleep is really critical.
Yep.
I've read that, if you're taking anything that sort of helps you sleep, you may be getting the hours, but you may not be getting the deep sleep and REM sleep you need. And so, instead of a crutch of whatever those things are that you're taking, melatonin or whatever, it might be better to, do some housekeeping and try and get a consistent sleep schedule and get rid of the stimulating stuff. Don't drink coffee. Don't eat, at night. Don't look at your screen a couple hours before going to bed. Don't watch TV, read a book or whatever, or listen to calming music, take a warm bath or shower or whatever. If you need those kinds of help, those things to help you fall asleep and stay asleep, then do that.
Right.
So I do. Sleep is certainly important. I don't have that issue. A lot of people do.
Yeah.
And, drinking alcohol, when I drink, even if it's just a drink or two, it's never too much, then more than 2 drinks anyway. But, if I have a drink even, I do not sleep as well that night.
Yep.
When I have a lot of sugar, I do not sleep as well anymore, which is a good, it makes me feel good. Like, oh yeah, my body didn't like that. So that's why I don't do it very often, but I still do it occasionally.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think getting some good sleep habits is critical for a lot of people.
100%. And just like you said, getting some assessment was, a lot of people will say, oh, I do the phone thing and I wake up and I do it right away. And that's bad. But sometimes if you actually get a metric behind that too, And maybe you are still getting your sleep. And so you don't have to feel bad about that. It's just you got to be equipped with the right information and numbers to help make an informed decision.
And there could be a medical issue why, you're not sleeping deeply enough. You could have sleep apnea. You can go in and get tested for that. If you're with someone in the bed and you're snoring a lot, that could be a sign that you have sleep apnea. You're waking yourself up. You're not getting that deep REM sleep that you need. And so, there's stuff you can do to address that.
People discover that a ton. They'll like fly in an airplane. Someone's like, I think you have sleep apnea, right? And I've heard a bunch of stories of people saying that. And it's like, they had no idea. They might live alone. Like they could have, and then they get the CPAP and they do that and then they work on their health. Maybe they don't need it. But for that period of time, they was like, wow, I had no idea what I was missing out on.
Yeah.
And sleep is a tricky one because we're really good at walking around in underslept state. They did a study that showed that our sleep will go down and we will see a maximal decrease in like certain functioning, but cognition can continue to drop over time. But it's just sneaky because you won't know until you get a few good nights of sleep again what you were missing.
Yeah, I can't imagine how people feel for years not getting that deep sleep, and then they get the issue addressed by whatever means, and then how they feel those next days when they're getting a full good night of sleep. I can't imagine how much better they feel.
It's like a whole other life.
Yeah.
I got 2 kids right now, so I go through that weekly, get string a couple nights together. Today's one of them. And I'm like, I can speak better. I can see. Like it's wild. So some of it is perhaps temporary and unpreventable to a degree, but point is, pay attention to it. It's a big deal.
Especially as you age. I mean, when you're younger, we get away with tons of stuff: eating poorly, not exercising, not sleeping well, drinking more. Your body has much less tolerance for all that stuff and more as you age.
I think it's right when you turn, like, I don't know. Everyone says it's every decade it changes, right? Well, wait till you're 30, wait till you're 40. And I'm telling the 20-some-year-olds, I'm like, you're not going to be able to drink anymore because I have 1 or 2 and just it wrecks it. Sleep, fall asleep earlier, sleep quality, deep wave cycles, they're gone. So you wake up, like, I feel horrible. I only had 1 drink.
Yeah.
It's because of that.
Yep.
As far as social engagement, is there anything kind of rooted in that? Is it just spending quality time with people that you care about, doing fun things? Is there any other metric with that you found?
I think it's just the interaction is good for your brain. Like when we lose our sight, or we become not go blind necessarily, but we have vision issues or hearing issues, then that part of your brain is not being stimulated like it used to. So you get hearing aid, you get glasses, so you can continue to stimulate that. So I think the social stuff is all just all that stimulation and having conversations and remembering what you talked about last time and being interesting and interested in people and showing empathy and all of that, I think is critical. I'm trying to get into volunteering more, and just so it's not even people you might know or have close bonds with, although that's obviously great and important to hang out with friends and family. But just getting yourself in more social situations. I mean, that the band, the same thing, that was a reason, just the social aspect of it. So I do think social plays a big role. And, as we, maybe can't think as clearly or are tired more, or our hearing or vision isn't as good, the world sort of closes in a little bit and we're less comfortable going out and being social because it's uncomfortable.
Right.
And you really have to fight against that because it'll just build on itself and be a bigger problem. And I remember, one of the things the Mayo Clinic did tell my parents, I remember this clearly, is, even though it was a lot of plan for the future, they said, keep doing social things with your friends, because that will just help. I mean, even then they were saying that to just keep that social engagement going, because otherwise you're just going to be at home staring at a TV or the wall or something.
Right. Isolation is not good.
No.
For anyone at all. I mean, I was going to say, except for the criminals, right? But even they have a lot more social interaction than a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
It's, I don't think it's something we realize. And just like you said, it gets harder to seek that out because we all like our comfort zone. A lot of times, like, I could see myself going down that path, being like, I don't want to bother anyone with this. I don't want to be a burden. I'm just going to stay home. And I feel like that's probably a dangerous.
And I like being at home. I'm introverted. My wife is somewhat introverted. We like hanging out at home. We have to, sort of make ourselves sometimes get out and do things with people.
Yeah.
And we love it when we do.
Yeah.
So it's a balance, and we all have different tendencies. I know other
Right.
people that get tons of energy by being in big groups of people.
Yeah.
I mean, that I can last about an hour. I can literally say, oh, I think I've been here an hour, and
Yep.
I'll look at my watch
Yeah.
because I'm just drained.
Right on the nose.
Yeah.
Right on the nose. That's funny. I'm the same way too. I could ask Katie before we go somewhere. I'm like, what's the timeline? If it's like a group of her friends and they all know each other and I gotta do the small talk thing, I'll just play with the kids for a lit. Then I'm like, all right, I think I've hit my cap. So we're in the same boat there. Speaking of which, we're basically right on an hour right now.
So we're both pretty much tapped out.
I know. We're like, well, how much longer? But no, is there anything else you think is kind of worth sharing from all the things we covered, which is a lot? I will say this:
we did cover a lot. We didn't even cover half of what we planned to cover.
No, but that's kind of how it goes, and I think every piece of it was important. This could be a 2-hour episode, but I don't know if this will get out before our seminar next Tuesday, but you're gonna be sharing some of these same things a little bit more of like a workshop format. We're gonna help people install these into their lives in a bit more of a practical, individualized way if we can. So, do you think we missed any really important blocks of information?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we could talk forever, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
I think the key is to, it's all the obvious stuff, but then the extra stuff that we don't know about or don't think about is the maybe more extensive blood work. And a lot of people aren't going to do that. They're not going to spend the money, or they're afraid of it, or they're afraid of what the results will be. There's some genetic markers that you can get with a simple blood test. And it tells you really somewhat clearly whether you have an increased risk of getting Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And I'm a quick decision maker. I'm all over this stuff, as you obviously know. I struggled with wanting to get that test for a year.
Really?
What if it says this? What if it says that? If it says good, will I be less motivated to be healthy? If it says bad, am I gonna, crawl in a shell?
Right.
It's not necessarily easy. So people that don't want to do all these blood tests, I totally get. Most of them, though, the 99% of them are, the vitamin D, the magnesium, your hormone levels, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Omegas and cholesterol and stuff, some stuff that you might get at an annual physical. So I think, the newest thing for people is the idea of getting a more extensive blood draw and just understanding, where are you at?
Yep.
And are there some risks there? Just like if your cholesterol is high or your blood pressure isn't right, those are signals that, we need to do some things. Let's try diet. Let's try exercise. We also have this medicine if that doesn't work. So it's the same thing. We just don't think about that for our brain. And I think that's a new concept for a lot of people.
Yeah. One that I think will continue to grow for exactly the reasons we're sitting down and talking about this right now.
Yeah.
There was been one question that I had related to blood work before I let you go is most people just go and do their run-of-the-mill quarterly check-in, the doctor, they do their thing, and there's not much guidance or things beyond that, which is really irks me. But if people were going to get a more comprehensive blood work done, are there local clinics? Do any of them mail in services? Are they even worth looking at, to your knowledge?
Yeah, I think, I'm just pulling up on this piece of paper here. So there are a couple companies that focus on brain health specifically and will help you get these tests done. You'll just go to Quest, do a big blood draw. Quest will send them the data, so you can do that wherever you are.
Great.
I worked with a company called A Mind for All Seasons. They're phenomenal. They have a subscription model where you pay maybe $25 a month and you get access to a bunch of things, or you can spend a couple $1,000s and do a whole big blood draw and get a roadmap from them. And
wow.
So I love that. Apollo Health is another organization led by Dale Bredesen, who's a neurologist who's very well known in this space. So that's worthwhile, especially if you're at higher risk. You might want to do that stuff.
Yeah.
If it's more, I'm not at higher risk, or I don't think I am, and I just want some big blood draws. Function Health, I get served these ads on Facebook all the time.
Yeah. Function
Health is a big one. Inside Tracker is another one. And they'll do, I think Function Health, last I looked, was maybe $300 or $400 for 2 very extensive blood draws.
Yeah.
And doctors will look at them, or PAs will look at them, physician assistants will look at them. You'll have a conversation for the things that are sort of out of bounds. So you get some access to medical professionals. It's very extensive. You can get brain specific or other aspects depending on what you want to do. And you can always take those results to your doctor and say, hey, I did this. You may or may not support it, but whatever. Here's a bunch of data.
Yeah.
This is what these guys told me. What do you think? Because you know me better. You know my background. You know what other medicines I'm taking and whatever. So it's at least more data you can use to have a conversation with your regular doctor.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, that's great. These are things I'm thinking of, and I've not done one yet. I think Sean did an extensive blood work test to see where he was at, and because he eats a lot of high fat and he wanted to look at his cholesterol, and like it was all good. But I got 2 young kids now, and I'm starting to think like I got to set the stage. Busy operation we have here. We got girls. They got to be everywhere. We got 2 sports tonight. I'm not even sure how we're going to get them in 2 places at once. But it's easy for things to slip away, and it's easy for 10, 20 years to go by. And again, what were the last couple of decades like? So as I've gone this journey with coaching and whatnot, our emphasis has very much reflected even my own personal journey of what's important. And before I have kids and before this stuff was important, it was like, yeah, I get it. And that's shifted. I truly have more conviction in what we're doing and why it's important. And that I think that's a palpable thing, and something we're going to keep rolling with. This is a huge part of it. So I want to thank you so much for doing this, Hal. This has been really great. This was really good information. And I mean, a more important cause than almost anything, living a long, healthy life.
I don't know why I was so nervous.
I don't know why either. You did great. It was awesome. Now, people can find your website. It's, remind me.
lowerdementiarisk.com. I'm on Substack, which is, I think, lowerdementiarisk.substack.com. There's almost more information there now than on my website, but I'll sync those up at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah, check it out. I am, you can email me at hal@lowerdementiarisk.com. If you have questions, if you want to talk, if you need help in some way, I'm available for that kind of stuff. Would love to help people.
No, this is great. This is obviously something you're really passionate about, and it shows. Like I said, it's really important stuff. So thank you for offering to help, of course. Well, awesome. Any other closing notes, Hal?
No, I think we're good.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for doing this. Thank you everyone for listening. Check out Hal's website if you have more questions, comments, concerns, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thank you.
See you later.